Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 24th day of June, 2025, in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness, text number 2. Oh, wait a minute. Did we do text 2? I want to do it again. Yeah, okay. Okay. Wait a minute. sorry, let me announce that again. On this 24th day of June 2025 in San Diego, reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action and Krishna Consciousness, Text 2. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nikshreya Sakaravu Bhao Tayastu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nikshreya Sakaravu Bhao Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nikshreya Sakaravu Bhao Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. Okay, who's first? Oh, go ahead, Tabas. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nikshreya Sakaravu Bhao Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. Go ahead. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nikshreya Sakaravu Bhao Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. Don't worry about it. Anyone else? Go ahead, Bhushan. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nikshreya Sakaravu Bhao Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. Ladies. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nikshreya Sakaravu Bhao Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nikshreya Sakaravu Bhao Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nikshreya Sakaravu Bhao Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. All right, word by word, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the personality of Godhead, said, Sannyasa, renunciation of work. Karma Yoga, work in devotion. Cha also, Nikshreya Sakarao, leading to the path of liberation. Ubhao, both, Tayo of the two, but Karma Sannyasat, in comparison to the renunciation of fruit of work, Karma Yoga, work in devotion, Vishishyate, is better. Translation. The personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Purport. Fruit of activities seeking sense gratification are the cause for material bondage. As long as one is engaged in activities aimed at improving the standard of bodily comfort, one is sure to transmigrate to different types of bodies, thereby continuing material bondage perpetually. Srimad Bhagavatam 5:5-4-6 confirms this as follows. So I'll chant these myself. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma yadindriya pritaya apranoti nasaru manye yata atmanoyam asannapi kleshada asadeha palabhavastava bodha jato yavan jigyasata atma tattvam yavat kriyastavadidam manovai karmatmakam yena sharira bandha evam manakarma vashampayunkte avidhyatman upadiyamane Pritirna yavan mahivasudeve namuchyate dehi yogena tavat. Translation. People are mad after sense gratification, and they do not know that this present body, which is full of miseries, is a result of one's fruitive activities in the past. Although this body is temporary, it is always giving one trouble in many ways. Therefore, to act for sense gratification is not good. One is considered to be a failure in life as long as he makes no inquiry about his real identity. As long as he does not know his real identity, he has to work for fruitive results for sense gratification. And as long as one is engrossed in the consciousness of sense gratification, one has to transmigrate from one body to another. Although the mind may be engrossed in fruitive activities and influenced by ignorance, one must develop a love for devotional service to Vasudeva. Only then can one have the opportunity to get out of the bondage of material existence. Close quote. Therefore, jnana, or knowledge that one is not this material body but spirit soul, is not sufficient for liberation. One has to act in the status of spirit soul. Otherwise, there is no escape from material bondage. Action in Krishna consciousness is not, however, action on the fruitive platform. Activities performed in full knowledge strengthen one's advancement in real knowledge. Without Krishna consciousness, mere renunciation of fruitive activities does not actually purify the heart of a conditioned soul. As long as the heart is not purified, one has to work on the fruitive platform. By action in Krishna consciousness, action in Krishna consciousness automatically helps one escape the result of fruitive action so that one need not descend to the material platform. Therefore, action in Krishna consciousness is always superior to renunciation, which always entails a risk of falling. Renunciation without Krishna consciousness is incomplete, as is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.258. Prapanchikataya buddhya harisambandhi vastunaha mumukshubi parityago vairagyam palgukatyate. When persons eager to achieve liberation renounce things related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking them to be material, their renunciation is called incomplete. Renunciation is complete when it is in the knowledge that everything in existence belongs to the Lord and that no one should claim proprietorship over anything. One should understand that factually nothing belongs to anyone. Then where is the question of renunciation? One who knows that everything is Krishna's property is always situated in renunciation. Since everything belongs to Krishna, everything should be employed in the service of Krishna. This perfect form of action in Krishna consciousness is far better than any amount of artificial renunciation by a sannyasi of the Mayavadi school. Now I'm totally on the bodily platform. Now I feel cold, so I'm putting this on. Maybe if I study the Bhagavad Gita, I'll rise up to the mental platform. All right. So now this arises because Arjuna asked a question. O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? So work means any activity that you perform with any of your senses, mental work. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of the Parampara, the disciplic succession. Thank you. So Arjun is asking a question that we might ask, because which is better? If I give up all fruitive activity, then I won't be bound and I'll get liberation. But the problem is that all those previous fruitive acts that we performed have left a residue in our mind, the desire to experience those pleasures again. So you can't really purify the consciousness just by renunciation. And this proverb refers at the very end that artificial renunciation of the sannyasis of the Mayavadi school. So he would always quote this verse in regard to this artificial renunciation. And that is a verse spoken by the demigods when Krishna was about to take birth in the dungeon of Kamsa, right? Devaki was very, very effulgent, beautiful. He's the 8th son, actually. Yeah. So they come down and they offer all these prayers. And one of them, they're glorifying the devotees of the Lord. But then they chant this verse. Ye and ye. Anye means others. But beside the devotees, there were others. Ye and ye arabindaksha vimukta maninas tvayashta bhavad avishuddha buddhaya. Aruha kṛṣṇa parang parang tata patantya dhoanadrita yushmarangriya. So, do you know what an onomatopoeia is? Is it English? Onomatopoeia is a word that means what it sounds like. It's full of them. Like we have boom. That's an English word. It's meant to, it's a little boom. It's like boom, or splash. Isn't that onomatopoeia? So English has a lot of them, and Sanskrit has a lot of them too. So this word kṛṣṇa is a word in Sanskrit in the verse that means austere, very great austerities, meant to forcibly control the mind and detach it from all these objects of desire that you may be interested in, so that you can rise up to the Brahman platform. Not to Goloka Vrindavan, mind you, but to the white light, the Brahman effulgence, where the great attraction is no more birth and death. You see, you'll be liberated. You just become a little particle of light up there and you'll hover up there forever. The problem is that it's unnatural for the soul. There are 3 levels of God realization. This is explained in the 2nd chapter, 1st canto. Vadanti tat tattvadas tattvam jnanam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabjite. That those who are seers of the truth, vadanti tat, or knowers of the truth, tattva vida. Tattva is the truth, and vida is those who know. They have explained that this absolute truth exists in 3 features. You may be familiar with them. The Brahma Jyoti, which is the preliminary, the effulgence of the spiritual effulgence, you see. It's above the modes of nature, so there's some attraction there. But there's no variety. This is the famous Nirvishesha that Prabhupada has saved us from. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. Just among all of us, you may say this prayer, like it. Don't say Shunyavadi. Say Shunyavadi. It's a long U. Shunyavadi. Yeah. Generally, the long vowels become short. It's easier to say the short ones. But anyway, this is the Nirvishesha. Nirvishesha means no details, no varieties, just homogeneous white light, spiritual light. And thank God I won't have to take birth again. I'll just stay up here. But how long can you be happy with that? We are persons. We are eternal persons, just like Krishna. We are minute and he is great, but still we're eternal persons. So without engagement of the senses and relationship and everything, we can never be truly blissful. It's the blissfulness of finally getting free from birth, old age, disease, and death. But that's a negative thing. What are you going to do with that freedom? It's like getting out of the hospital. Suppose you've been in the hospital for a long time, and you're in traction, you're in an accident, when am I going to get out of here, and finally you get released, Says, oh, great, So you go outside, and what do? You sit down on the curb, the sidewalk, and say, oh, now I'm free from there. Now I'm just going to stay here. I'll be out of that. No, you get back into your life, right? So we have a life that we left, a blissful life in relation to Krishna and Goloka Vrindavan. Each one of us has a unique identity. We could be a cowherd boy. We could be on the level of the elders, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. We could be one of the cows. We could be one of the trees. Everything is completely conscious there. This is what's so remarkable. There's a beautiful verse. I memorized this long ago. this is one of the songs of the gopis. The gopis is like 3 or 4 songs in the Bhagavatam. The most famous of which is called the Gopi Gita, which means gopi song. But it's the first, and it's when the gopis are separated from Krishna in the rasa dance, and he actually goes and he's staying with Radharani, and then she gets a little proud. He disappears from her also. So then the gopis are wandering and looking for Krishna, and they start imitating his pastimes and ecstasy and asking the different entities of the forest, the trees and the birds, have you seen Krishna? Where is Krishna? So they're kind of mad in separation. Finally they find Radharani, and she's sitting alone, and she tells her story. Yes, Krishna took me away alone, but then I became a little proud, and then he left me too. So now what to do? So they go back to the bank of the Yamuna, and they start singing this song, which is famous. I remember just a little vignette. It was after the morning program. Everyone had left the temple, and for some reason I came back in, and there was this Indian gentleman, and the deities were open, and he was chanting these prayers. Jayati te dikam janmanavrajak Shrayati indara shaswaratrihi Dayata dushitam dikshutabakas Tvahidvatasavastram vichinvate. So they're saying, all glories to you, Krishna. Jayati te adikam janmanavrajak. You have appeared here in Braja, and the goddess of fortune is also here now, And oh beloved, we've been looking for you everywhere. Please show yourself to us. That's kind of the refrain line. So that's one of the songs, but this is a different song. This is just one of the daily songs. It's not the rasa dance. And the gopis are at home doing their duties, churning the butter and everything else, And while they're doing it, they're singing of Krishna. This is what they do. So this has a really sweet meter. So here's the meter, and actually they start out with Vama baho katavama kapolo volgitam balararapita venum komalanga dibarashita margam gopiriyati yatra makunda. So this is the Vama baho. He's got his left shoulder on his left cheek. Now I'm a flute player, so I know when you got a long flute, this is what and it turns. He has different size flutes, right? So he's got a long flute. So he's got his left arm, shoulder on his left cheek. They're visualizing this. They're at home, and he's in the forest. And he's playing Vama Vakuta Vama Kapola Volgita Bru, and he's moving his eyebrows very beautifully. His soft fingers. Oh, gopis, listen to what happens when he plays that flute. The demigoddesses riding in the sky with their husbands. They are in their airplane. They say, oh, what is that sound? Let's go down and listen. And they both become attracted, and they're going into ecstasy. So they're visualizing that, and then they go on, and then at a certain point, the meter changes a little bit. They're more excited. Instead of dan 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 dan, it's anucharai samanavarnataviya adipurusha hivachalabud vanacharokadita teshitadantu venunaviyati gasa yadahi vanalatashtadava atmani vishnum vyanjayandi hiva pushpa baladhya. You can see why I like these prayers. I got a beat. So anyway, this one is, the reason why I mention this, because this shows how the trees are also completely conscious, and they are responding. So Anusharai Samanavarnataviya, his companions are with him. They're playing in the forest, and the cows are there and everything. And they're singing his glories. Anucharai Samanavarnataviya, very nicely singing about him. Adi Purusha Ivacha, it is as if he is the Supreme Person surrounded by his energies. They don't know he's God. You see? This is just like if God Almighty was doing it. It's really nice. Adi Ivacha Labudi. Vanacharo Giditateshu Chadantes. They're going through the forest, they're going on the mountain, on the side of the mountain. And when he blows that flute, what happens? Vanalatas, all of the trees and the creepers that are growing in the forest they're passing with, they all, you've seen this, the time, when you see a movie and the thing blossoms right away, the flowers. What do they call that? I forget. What is it? Time-lapse photography. So, but this isn't time-lapse photography. This is a real thing. The trees are so ecstatic; they bloom like anything. All their fruits are there, and they get heavy, and they bow down. So they all bow down to Krishna as he enters in. So that's why I mentioned we could be trees. We can be very happy trees, because we're giving fruits to Krishna. Just like I've been going over to Vons and getting these tree-ripened mangoes. Don't ask me how much I'm paying for it. I'm going broke. But you leave them for a few days and they're really special. They're special, vine ripened. You don't get these. And I looked, I had a whole bunch of other mangoes, mostly green and hard. 99 cents each, which is a small percentage of what. But it's worth it, And so, but you can imagine living in, all the trees and the fruits are alive, and they're offering themselves to Krishna and he's eating them. So that's the spiritual world. Those are the details that we want. If we can become attracted to that on this platform, we can truly become vairagis. We can become indifferent to the sense gratification. The sense gratification won't even attract us anymore because we're experiencing so much spiritual pleasure from giving Krishna pleasure. This is the essence of bhakti. It's concentrated in this one little phrase. I didn't expect you to memorize it, but when I first saw it in the second canto purport back in '73, I was reading, I said, this is, the concise definition of bhakti. Bhajaniya padama purusha sukhamatra swasukatvam. That's the whole thing. So bhajaniya means the worshipable supreme person, padama purusha, that's Krishna. Sukha matra, only his happiness. Swasukatvam, to take one's own happiness only in giving happiness to the Lord, finding pleasure. And I always like to bring this up, how this is the closest thing we have to that in this platform, is the mother's child for the helpless little baby. Baby is 6 months old, whatever, doesn't talk. And the mother's always thinking, is the child healthy? Is he well fed? Why is he crying, Prabhupada said the mother can't tell. Maybe he's getting bitten on the back by some bug, but she thinks he's hungry. Whatever. But the point is she's concerned. And if the child is resting peacefully, or he opens his eyes and smiles with one of those toothless smiles, that's the whole day is made, the whole week is made for the mother, So she's taking her gratification, pleasure as it is, in the child's happiness. So that's the closest thing we have on this plane. Because the child grows up, it doesn't last. But in the spiritual world, that's what everybody is feeling. And Krishna is reciprocating. He's reciprocating by just being there, and welcoming them, embracing the gopis, and playing with the boys, and embracing the cows. And that's the world that we left foolishly. So this is the systematic way of training our mind and our senses and everything to return there. Not to the Brahmajyoti, but to the spiritual world where you don't have to come back. 4 or 5 places Krishna says, Yad gadvana navartante tadama padamang mama. Once going there, you never return. Now, of course, the logical question is, well, why do we come down in the first place? You see? And that is a good question. Because we were foolish. We're in a minority. Most never come down. But here's the thing. It's all based on love, and love has to be freely given. There's no coercion at all. Prabhupada famously said, Krishna doesn't want us to love him at the point of a revolver. Love me or else. That's not love. That's slavery. So he's given us this minute independence. He has unlimited freedom. He can do whatever he wants. But what he wants is for us to be happy in the service attitude to him, in some variety. In our intrinsic variety, we have a certain rasa with him that's unchangeable. We want to try to discover that again and act in it as much as possible on this plane, and then return and leave this body behind, no more material body, and regain our spiritual body. So that's what we're now. That's very pertinent to this verse, because Arjuna wants to know. You told me to give up karma, which is fruit of activity, but it can also be defined as just activity. And then sannyas can be defined, renunciation, and he's taking renunciation of activity. But actual, real sannyas is not renunciation of activity. It's total renunciation of fruit of activity. The sannyasis are all busy. We had our sannyasi here who was chanting like anything and went off to his next engagement. He stayed at my place, but he was, doing stuff. He was reading, chanting, typing, whatever. So it's not, we're not into, becoming like the yoga, which is going to explain into chapter 6, where you become completely, inert. And the whole thing is simply, you're watching the breath, and you're just trying to control the mind by force. But what are you thinking of? What's filling your mind? That's the point. Now, there is a devotional aspect to that where you can be meditating on Vishnu in the heart, But generally, the yogis, because if you really do it right, you get certain powers, You can get whatever you want. All right, Fort Knox, gold is up. Let me get a couple of kilos, Prabhupada said, what is that? Siddhi. Did I use that word? Anyway, okay, the siddhis. They want the siddhis, the perfections, so-called perfections. So Prabhupada said he knew someone when he was a young man who had a yoga teacher who said to him, okay, what do you want? Do you want something? So, okay, I want the pomegranates from Afghanistan. Apparently they grow really nice pomegranates there. So the man said, okay, look in the bedroom. He opens the door, and there's a branch broken off with 4 or 5 fresh pomegranates. He was able to get that, manifested. So this is one of the cities, and there's others, becoming lighter than lightest, walking on water. It is said that Jesus went to learn some yoga. So, but this is ultimately, you can get really enamored of those siddhis. And we have so many examples of these powerful yogis like Durvasa Muni, He was very powerful yogi. He had siddhis, but he was envious of Ambarish Maharaj, a king. He's down, he's a Kshatriya and so much responsibility. But he was a great devotee. There's verses about it, I won't give you all the Sanskrit, but it says, his mind was always thinking of Krishna. With his hands, he was always doing something for Krishna. His feet, he was walking to the temple. In other words, he was completely engaged, and he was known as a very exalted devotee. And this Durvasa was envious of him. Why should he get all this honor? I'm a great yogi. And Prabhupada said he could. I never heard of this Siddhi. He had arranged it so that men could be grown on trees, and they would grow up, and then you pick. Who knows how he did that? But with all of those siddhis, he wasn't as beloved as this Ambarish, because Ambarish was a pure devotee, So he was envious. So I'll just tell the story quickly. So Durvasa, now, for a long time, I thought, I know a little Sanskrit. So Durvasa means that his clothes were far away and he was running naked. But that's not what it means. Durvasa means he's very hard to live with. He's such a incorrigible guy. So anyway, so he plans it out that, so Ambarish was very, good devotee, and he always follows the Kṛṣṇa very strictly, which means that on the next day you break the fast, and he would fast all day and all night, and you break the fast during a certain interval. It's according to the moon and everything. So he knew when that time was, and Ambarish was very strict, and he would always break it at that time. So Durvasa arrives alone this time, not with his 60,000 disciples. That's another pastime. And of course he gets honored by Ambarish. He's a great yogi, and says, "Would you like to take breakfast?" "Yes, I will. But I first want to take a bath." That's a standard thing, traveling. So he takes a bath, and he knows the time, but he personally takes a long bath so that the time is expiring. And Ambarish is very strict about breaking in the interval, otherwise you don't get the benefit of the Kṛṣṇa, So he consults his Brahmins. They don't know what to do, so he suggests, well, I'll just drink some water, because water isn't really breaking a fast, right? And so he won't be offending his guest by taking prasadam until the guest comes out. That's the whole idea. Just water, drink water. So he did that. He drank water during the interval, and then Durvasa came out after the time had expired. And he could tell by his mystic power that this Ambarish had drunk water. He had eaten before his guest could eat. He had greatly offended Durvasa. So what's the punishment? He created, this is more power, he took some hair, he pulled out a lot of energy in the hair, just like Samson, had the hair, and he created a Kṛṣṇa. A Kṛṣṇa is a fiery demon, but it's actually, I looked it up in the dictionary, female, the demoness, made of fire, And he instructed this demoness to go and annihilate Ambarish, burn him to death. So Ambarish is standing there chanting Hare Krishna, completely unperturbed. He said, well, if this is what Krishna wants, I'll lose my body and go back to Godhead. So, meanwhile, Krishna's chakra, which he had instructed to be at the disposal of Ambarish, he came unbidden and annihilated that demoness, and then he went after Durvasa. Now Durvasa, if he was really advanced, he would have said, bring it, I'm ready to be killed by the chakra. It's auspicious, actually. But no, he started running, and running means not just running, but really going, planet to planet, So he went to Shiva. Shiva said, what can I do? You got the chakra after you. He went to Brahma and said, I can't do nothing. So then he goes to Vaikuntha. He's able to get to Vaikuntha. There's a Vaikuntha planet in this universe. I think that's the one he went to, like Dhruvaloka, And Vishnu's there. So he goes and he goes to Vishnu. He said, oh, please withdraw your chakra. It's right after me, right behind me, And Vishnu says, I can't do nothing. You have to go down to Ambarish and get his forgiveness. And then the chakra will stay. So he said, okay, it's a deal. So he went down, ran down there, and he offered dandabats to Ambarish, please forgive me. And Ambarish said, okay, the chakra said, like, cool it. So that was now the thing about Durvasa, that I say, I thought it meant that his clothes are far away and he's running naked. But it actually means someone whom you can't live with. Durvasa, Vasa meaning your abode, and Dur means far away. Because he's such a, unlivable guy. Anyway, there was a story about Durvasa. But the point is that he was a great yogi, but look where he got off, So the yogis get into these powers because they're not really purifying their heart. And that's what this verse is. Back to the verse by the demigods in Waiting for... It says, Anye Aravindaksha, O lotus-eyed Lord, besides your devotees, who we just glorified, there are others, O lotus-eyed Aravindaksha, vimuktamaninas, who think they're liberated. But their intelligence really hasn't been purified because they're averse to worshiping your lotus feet. And therefore, the few who by great austerities, Kṛṣṇa, by forcibly suppressing the mind and the senses. I always like to give the example, because we're also yogis. We're trying to be yogis, right? And so we're chanting the holy name, and we see the deities, and there's the prasadam, and there's festivals. We had the incredible flower festival, and everyone's ready to go to the Rath Yatra in about a month and 5 weeks in LA. So, but all of these things, beginning with the chanting of the holy name, purifies our heart. That's the great Chaito Darpana Marjanam. Purifying of what? All these material desires and material interests. So that's what Prabhupada is referring here, that the Mayavadis, some may think that they're liberated, but they really aren't, and so they fall down. This verse says they come down again from the Brahmajyoti to open hospitals or something and do politics. Okay, Hare Krishna. Hare. So back to the verse. Now I want to just explore these three verses. These three verses are spoken by Rishabdev, Lord Rishabdev, in the 5th canto. And he's instructing his 100 sons, one of whom is Bharat, after which Bharatabarsha was named, because that's his own pastime. We don't get into now. But he's going to take sannyas, so he's giving them this strong instruction. And this is a whole lesson in itself, these three verses. And I just want to explore this because it's very instructive. So he says, Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yadindriya priti apranoti. Those who were looking for indriya priti, which is exactly translated as sense gratification, They're certainly mad. That's what pramatta means. Not just mad, but very mad. Nuna pramatta kurude becoming. They perform all kinds of sinful activities, vicious activities. There's karma, there's akarma, and there's vikarma. Karma in this context means fruit of activity that's authorized by the Vedas. There's a whole karma kanda section where you can perform the sacrifices with the hopes of going to Indraloka. It's all pious, but it's not getting you back to Godhead, because you have to eventually fall down. And Krishna discovers it here. But that's karma. But this is vikarma, vicious activity just for sense gratification, against the laws of the Vedas. So, na sadhu manya is, my opinion is, it's not very good. The word sadhu can mean, of course, sadhu, a person, but it can also mean very good. That's why when Krishna does something wonderful, his friends will all say, sadhu, sadhu. Now they're not calling him a sadhu, they're saying bravo, bravo. That's what it means, you see? So here he's saying, na sadhu, it's not good, in my opinion, says, because by that activity, the soul is asanapi, kleshada asadeya. Although it's temporary, he's sure to get another body, which is the source of all misery, kleshada, you see? So we shouldn't act for sense gratification. So then the next verse is the key verse of the three. Padavabhas, now there's two instances here of yavat tavat. Yavat tavat is a pair of words in Sanskrit, where it means, generally, if you don't do this, then you won't get that. You see, as long as you don't do this, you won't get that. It's often in the negative, which is here. So Parabhavas probably translates as defeat, means birth and death. You're defeated in your human life if you take birth again. As long you're going to be defeated by this abodha jata, this defeat which is born out of ignorance. You see, jata means janma, birth, and abodha means ignorance. Abodha jata. So what will keep you without ignorance? Yavan, as long as you do not, jigyasata. Here you have that key word, inquire. This is the first word or second word of the Vedanta Sutta. Atato Brahma jigyasa. Now as a human being you should inquire into the absolute truth. Don't waste your precious time. You have the intelligence to do this and to actually make your life successful. Means no more birth and death, go back to Godhead. So, but if you don't, najigyasata, then you're going to be defeated again and again. In other words, you'll take birth again and again. If you don't inquire into Atma Tattva, the truth of the soul and the truth of the Super Soul. So now he goes on, another yavat tavat. Yavat kriyas. Kriyas here means simply fruit of activity. As long as you act fruitively, tavat, that long, idam manovai, your mind will be karmatmakam, full of karmic ideas, fruit of ideas, you see? By which, sharira bandha, you remain bound to a physical body. All in that one verse he's describing. That's why this inquisitiveness is so, because we're going to be inquisitive. Any living being practically. Probably would give the example of the birds. They land there and they say, where's the worm? I don't know if they hear them, somehow they sense where those birds are. Or they go, on my walk, I learned so much on the walk, I see the pigeons. They're having a festival because there's a couple of trash bins and the homeless guys, they're trying to find something, they throw it off. And there's some edibles there, some old pizza or something, Where is that? Where's the trash? So they're also inquisitive, So there's all of this inquisitive, but if you're not inquisitive about Atma Tattva, then you're going to take another birth. So then he winds it up. He says, Evam manak, thus the mind, karmarisham, forced by these karmic ideas, prayunkte, engages in fruitive work out of ignorance. Avidyayatman ubadiyamani. And then the key line here. Priti niyavan maya vasudevi. Now he's saying, again, yavatavat. As long as you don't have love for me, Vasudev. So he identifies himself. Rishabdev is an incarnation of Krishna. Then, namuchite, you will not be liberated. Muchite, mukti, the same basic word. Liberated from what? Dehi yogena, the bondage to a material body, which keeps you coming around and around. So that development of love of Krishna, that's really the key to getting liberation. But the wonderful thing is, if you do develop it, you don't care about liberation. That's why Lord Chaitanya says, Mama Janmani Janmani Ishwara, birth after birth, just let me have, unmotivated devotional service to you, which means simply out of love. So he's saying that ultimately you lose your desire for liberation. You don't care. I don't care heaven or hell or earth, as long as I can serve Krishna, I'm happy. You know? So that's the lesson here. It's a complete lesson in this. I just wanted to call your attention to that. All right, so then renunciation, you know, the ignorant renunciation that he quotes from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami. Prapanchikataya buddhya means seeing everything material. The materialists, you know, the Mayavadis are coming here. You guys just worshiping this stone statue, and you're thinking that, you know, you're becoming advanced. That's ridiculous, you know. And it's simply a sound. There's so many sounds. I could chant, you know, row your boat gently down the stream. I'll get the same. They're atheists, you know. They're offenders. But that's what he's describing here. Prapanchikataya buddhya, having the mentality of everything that they see is material. Even Hari Sambandhi, even those things related to Hari. Mumukshubi, they just want that liberation, you know. So they give up everything. They renounce everything, even those things related to Krishna. But this is weak vairagya. Palgu literally means weak. And Prabhupada, and this will be the last thing I mention on this particular verse. There's a river called the Palgu River in India. And during the summer, it kind of dries up. And it's just but if you stick your hand in there, in the riverbank, you'll feel the moisture, you see. So similarly, the Mayavadis may appear to be very renounced, you know, but if you just get into their heart a little bit, you say they got all these unfulfilled desires, name and fame, you know, this and that, and whatever. Or even the desire for mukti itself alone is a material desire. Well, as Prahlad Maharaj says, you know, he says, Prayena Deva Munayo Svava Mukti Kama. Mukti Kama, that's the lust for mukti. It's because it just means, I'm going to, you know, get liberation. Heck with everyone else, you know. I'm gonna just go up to the Brahma Jyoti and leave these fools and rascals there to suffer. I don't give a damn. And so Prahlad says in the previous verse, I have no problem. He's speaking to Nrsingadev, his Lord, you know. Wonderful prayer. It says, I'm not udvija, means I'm not disturbed in any case, because at any time I can chant your glories and dive into the ocean of nectar. So what problem do I have? But I'm lamenting. What are you lamenting for? These fools and rascals have turned away from you and are trying to enjoy this illusory, flickering happiness, maya sukhaya. And we're bearing the great burden, budam, you know, of getting the money and making the arrangements, make sure I got healthy enough to enjoy, you know. Yeah. It's a great burden. Budam udvihito vimujan. I am simply disturbed for them. So this is a devotee. The next verse, Prayena Deva Munayo Svava Muktika. For the most part, these so-called munis are simply wandering in the hills, you know, simply caring for their own liberation. That's kind of a kama, vimuksha kama, maunam, literally silently. They don't make any noise. They don't say anything. They don't preach Hare, you know, they chant Hare Krishna. At least go into the town square and chant Hare Krishna. No, we're going to stay in the hills and, you know, be alone. Maunam charandi vijane, wherever there's no people, naparartha nishta, not at all determined to help others. You see, but the Vaishnavas, led by the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who, you know, didn't just go to Jagannath Puri and stay there and you know, do all the esoteric things with Sup Damodar and Ramananda Roy. That happened eventually, but he spent 6 years traveling around India and preaching and chanting Hare Krishna, and people would see him, and it was such an experience to see that, you know, 7 foot tall, you know, God, effulgent, chanting Hare Krishna and crying, you know. They would become pure just by seeing him and experiencing. Then they would go back to their villages and people would come to see them, and they would become devotees. So he's preaching like that, you know, because he's showing the example how we should feel for the God brothers, God sisters, you know. So that's the essence of this movement. And that's the most pleasing thing to Krishna. That's the best service, to try to bring others to Krishna consciousness. Okay, I'm sorry, I kind of got excited about all these things. All right, let's go on. Geya sanitya sannyasi yona dveshti nakankshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, O mighty armed Arjuna. Purport. One who is fully in Krishna consciousness is always a renouncer because he feels neither hatred nor desire for the result of his actions. Such a renouncer, dedicated to the transcendental loving service of the Lord, is fully qualified in knowledge because he knows his constitutional position in his relationship with Krishna. He knows fully well that Krishna is the whole and that he is part and parcel of Krishna. Such knowledge is perfect because it is qualitatively and quantitatively correct. The concept of oneness with Krishna is incorrect because the part cannot be equal to the whole. Knowledge that one is one in quality, yet different in quantity with the Lord, is correct transcendental knowledge, leading one to become full in himself, having nothing to aspire to or lament over. There is no duality in his mind, because whatever he does for Krishna. Being thus freed from the platform of dualities, he is liberated even in this material world. Now that reminds me of another verse Prabhupada would always quote. Iha. Now the word iha, short I, H short A, means here. This is the importance of the diacritics. But the word iha, long I and long A, means activities. Go figure. They don't seem to be related. But that's the Sanskrit language. So iha yasya hare dase karma nama nasagada nikalashvapyavastasu jivan mukta sa uchite. So for one who's all his activities of the senses, the mind, everything, iha yasya are within the realm of hare dase, servant to Hari, to Krishna. Karma nama nasagada, the active senses, the mind, and the intelligence, and the words, and etc. Nikalashvapyavastasu jivan mukte sa uchite. When all of his activities are in that category, then one is known as a jivan mukta. Even though he's in the body and he, within this world, he's still liberated. And Prabhupada showed that. He was so equipoised, not posed. They didn't know that. When that book first came out, the editor, Haigriva, didn't really know that word, even though he was an English professor. So we got a lot of equiposed. And so we said, oh, it's equipoised. Yes, okay. So to say equipoised, Prabhupada, he had heart attacks, and he had a head-on crash when he was in Mauritius. Luckily, just before the crash happened, he braced himself with his cane. He knew it was coming. Anyway, he was injured, but not thank God, not too bad. So all of that, he went through, and he just kept preaching and traveling and preaching until finally it was impossible. And he went to Vrindavan and showed everyone how to leave the body successfully. So that equipoise is there when one always feels connected to Krishna, because you're acting and thinking and speaking simply for Krishna and glorification. And because of that, as Prahlad Maharaj says, Naibodh Vijay Puraraja by Tvad Virya Gayana Mahamrita Magna Chitta. Virya Gayana, Virya means your heroic activities. I can sing about them anytime. Gayana Mahamrita, the great nectar ocean, I can dive into that nectar ocean of just thinking and glorifying you. So what do I have a problem for? I'm always blissful, and if something happens, the plane crashes, hey, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I could go on chanting. Right? As we know, right? If you know one verse, just learn this verse, okay? Everybody dies. Actually, I think I may have edited it. You can let me know anything. Every single body dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. And it all comes there. And that chanting, you'll be blissful. Fully youthful energy, or you're on your last legs, your last minute. Keep chanting, keep thinking of Krishna. That's equipoise in happiness and distress. All right. So that was the first of one or two poems that I'll do. So we didn't get very far, but we will do 3 tomorrow for the 4. Oh, we'll do 4. Okay, we'll do 4. All right. Yeah. So okay. I'm trying to think of one you haven't heard for a while. Oh, this is a nice one. It's very easy to remember because the meter is as easy as it could possibly be. Every single syllable is long. There's no short syllables. You don't have to worry about nigamakal bhattadorogalitam. Written by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Barhapidam maula bimbrad vangshi naranatham van nana kalpa shri sampanno gopa sribi sambhita netranandam kovan Krishna tvam tadvikshe niksheta sarve kamak sampadya rasmakam vidyasina decked with crown of peacock plumes, enchanting songs with flute you sing, wearing lovely ornaments while standing in the gopi's ring. Dear most Krishna, eyes delight if you will kindly glance our way. All our heart's desires will be fulfilled on this most blessed day. Now anyone can learn that verse. So I'll test you next time you come, next Tuesday. Taco Tuesday? You got it? Okay. So you can actually, between now and then, you could chant it to the picture on the wall, to the deities. Okay. All right, let's adjourn and we'll get ready for the kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thanks for your attention.